That makes sense. Can you tell? No, I don't think they're.
This moment, a gateway, wide vistas, bright horizons. Friends, we gather this morning in our sanctuary here in the shelter of faith, hope, and love, nestled in the sweet company of open hearts and curious minds and generous spirits, called to truth, guided by the ineffable. The path will open, the way will be made clear. The way for our adventurous, bold, and courageous new journey, and love will guide us. And all that is holy in these sacred halls and in the bonds of our beloved community will be with us on our journey. So come, let's worship together, as this gathered community has done for countless generations, as this gathered community will do well into the future. And now Jim Hamilton will light our chalice for us.
Let this flame be to us a symbol of the wholeness we seek.
Its brightness dispelling gloom, lighting a path to faith and hope.
Its glow reminding us of the sacred bonds that link us to all living things.
Its radiance calling us to cast the light of freedom, justice, and peace upon all the world. Well, good morning. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, for this 1 hour, you are part of this congregation and you are welcome. And you know who's welcome today? Our consultant, Reverend Scott Taylor. It's great to have you with us, Scott. We'll be spending quite a bit of time with Scott. He'll be here for worship and the workshop. You'll hear about all that in a sec. Let me tell you a little bit about what I know about Scott. And I was so, well, not everything that I know about Scott, but I was so excited when Scott agreed to be our consultant. First of all, I remember one of the first things I learned about Scott years ago was that he and his partner were co-ministers of a 1,200 person church. The size of the church he served was 1,200 people in Rochester. And then, I think at still a fairly young age, you were called to the UUA to be Director of Congregational Life. And I met you in that capacity as well. I remember I sat on the Blue Channing District Board, and Scott came down and did a lot of workshops and stuff with us. And then, after he left the UUA, you would think he would go back and serve a little congregation somewhere. But no, he founded something that's really important to the life of this congregation. Every month on your bell ringer, your monthly newsletter, you see this month's church-wide theme is, and there's a particular theme, and Scott is the founder of Soul Matters. So all that material when did you found that, by the way?
Maybe 6
6 or 8 years ago. We were one of your first customers, I must say. We were. And we've used so many aspects of it in religious education, in worship. We used some of the small group ministry materials. I also thought about how important Soul Matters was to the life of many congregations during COVID. You know, it was just a resource that lay people and ministers could depend on. So I'm so happy it's immense now. It's just got everything on there. So, and in addition to that, Scott does church consulting work, and he is a marital therapist. So a busy, busy guy, and we're so happy to have him with us here today. Jim, do you want to say a little bit about what happens after worship?
Well, yes, I would love to. So after worship, we will have a workshop that Scott is going to lead, and he'll tell you a lot about that, so I won't really say too much there. But it's going to be great. We have a couple of exercises, some breakout groups, and it should take about 90 minutes. There is actually food in the back, so you won't have to worry about missing your lunch, and so it really is going to be great. I would like to lift up the Envisioning our meeting house group and
I think Scott is going to.
Yeah. Okay, so let me just say this. We've been working on this for really just about 2 years now, with a little bit of a gap because of the pandemic. But if I could, I'd like the members of the working group to stand up. So Elaine Bryant, you're already standing, Catherine, so myself, Caroline Mitchell, Dorothy Pilla, Carol Robeson, Emily Simeone, and Tracy Wagner. So please all stand. They've been doing yeoman's work on this. So excited to be working with Scott. We've been Zooming with him. Now we get him in person. But let me just close by saying this. The governing board in 2019 gave us this charge, and is the Envisioning Our Meeting House in the 21st Century Task Force will establish and conduct a process whereby the entire church membership can engage in discernment about the appearance of the meeting house interior, focusing on the area behind the pulpit. Included will be consideration of the 2 large tablets mounted on the wall behind the pulpit, the wooden cornice, which has text on it, and the possible incorporation of Unitarian Universalist religious symbols. The task force will identify and work with an appropriate professional, Scott, who will consult and facilitate the process, and he's been great. To afford ample time for conversations and considerations, this process will take place over at least 2 years. So we're going to even exceed that. The ultimate goal, once we get some consensus, is to have a vote of the congregation probably in the April, May, June timeframe. So that's it for me.
Super. Thank you, Jim. So as we begin our time together, I know we're all masked up and everything, but as we traditionally do, we're not going to, actually, can we stand up? Dare we do that? What do you think? We haven't done that for 2 years. And can we move around in the aisles? Just don't touch one another, but say hello. You know how we used to do that? So let's mix it up a little and say hi. And can you put gallery, Dustin, can you put them on gallery? Thanks. So start winding down and coming back to your seats. But doesn't this feel good? It feels like the old days. Super. So my spiritual friends, some of you may remember our 375th anniversary of the church. What a glorious celebration that day was. Some of you may have been there when some of us, dressed in pilgrim gear, there are about 3, and we assembled down in Plymouth, and we went to the Plymouth church, and they released us from our covenant, and we walked those 9 miles from Plymouth to Duxbury, just as our founders had done. They had walked to Duxbury to their new home, First Parish. We are the first parish, you know, Scott. And seriously, we are. We're the first ones to break away from Plymouth. Yes. Lots of you churches use First Parish, but that's our name. It's okay. So we celebrated our 375th with the walk in the morning and this moving worship service in the afternoon. And I hope you remember Reverend Peter Gomes stood right here in this pulpit, not any pressure. Scott's doing a sermon today like Reverend Gomes did on the occasion of our 375th. And he stood here and he long loved our congregation. In fact, he was the main speaker for our 350th, I believe, as well. So he came back for our 375th and he delivered an amazing sermon. He was powerful and humorous at the same time as only Reverend Gomes could be. And he was very prophetic on that day. I remember him saying these last words at the end of his sermon. He said to us, "May your future be worthy of your past. May your future be worthy of your past." And my friends, I think in many ways that's where we're figuring out here in this Envisioning our Sanctuary, Envisioning the Meeting House initiative. We're looking towards the future that Professor Gomes had invited us to on that occasion of our 375th. The initiative is called, as Jim said, Envisioning the Meeting House for the 21st Century. Like most historical churches, this space is often referred to as a meeting house because in earlier times, folks would come to church in the morning for that 3-hour worship service with that 2-hour sermon. You gonna do that to us, Scott, today? Only 1 hour. Ooh. So they'd come to church in the morning, they would sit in their pew boxes, they would have their lunch in church. We're actually gonna do that today. And then in the afternoon, they would have town meeting. So these buildings were called meeting houses. In my 18 years among you, I have actually always referred to this space as the sanctuary. And this morning, my friends, as we're thinking about this space and its historical significance and its theological relevance, I'd like to begin the conversation with thinking about this space as a sanctuary, as our sanctuary, the sacred space that holds us as it has held generations before us. The space where we and generations of beloveds before us have laughed and cried. The space where we are reminded each week that we are lovable and we are loved. The sacred space where we can find rest and comfort and peace and start our week and face whatever comes up for us in our personal lives or in the world. Over 18 years among you, we have shared so many laughs, so much joy in this space, haven't we? For me, perhaps the greatest joy has been to watch our children learn and grow and become simply amazing young people. And we have, I won't say their names, Justin and Tamara, but we have 2 of them here with us today, 2 folks who went through our church school, and we are just so proud of you. So good to see you here today. I love it on Sunday morning when the families have those squirmy little kids who kind of peek around the pew boxes, and I love the decades of Christmas pageants that is our tradition here at First Parish. every pageant very unique because the cast of kids in the pageant makes it so. We won't talk about the time Joseph threw up on the stage and all those other fun stories, but you know, we've just had some wonderful times on Christmas pageants. And then there's our annual youth service, when our youth take over the pulpit and we all show up and we are constantly amazed by how brilliant and wonderful they are. We're so proud of them. These are, for me, have been the times of great joy. On my first Christmas Eve among you, way back 18 years ago, I told you that I'm a mom before a minister. I don't know if you remember this story. I was thinking about it the other day. I was up here, this is my first Christmas Eve in my new pastorate, and my little Becky, she's now 27 years old. Becky was younger at the time, and she was in Elaine's junior choir, and they sang from here, and then all the kids dispersed and they went back to their seats, and my husband David was supposed to sit in one of the front pews so that Becky could find him. So here I am, the junior choir had dispersed, and I'm starting my, reading my lesson with 500 people and our candlelight and the whole thing. And I watch as my little Becky is walking up and down the aisle. She can't find her dad. And all I could do was stop in mid-sentence and say, I'm sorry, folks, but I'm a mom before I'm a minister, and I'm watching my little one not able to find her dad. So will the father of my child please stand up? And do you remember I really said that and raised his hand so you two can be reunited, and that's what happened. So I loved that first Christmas Eve service, and I've loved all those Christmas Eve services since. I think Christmas Eve here is magical. There are magical moments. My husband David wasn't much of a churchgoer, but he always came on Christmas Eve. And I don't know if you remember, about Christmas Eve of 2009, David was actually a surprise reader for one of our lessons. He sat with me here in the pulpit all during the service, and he offered a beautiful reading of Maya Angelou's Amazing Peace. And less than 2 months after that, we were celebrating David's life right here in this same space, as he passed away after his 7-month battle with cancer. My friends, we have celebrated the lives of so many beloveds here in this sanctuary, haven't we? I buried my husband from this space. I had buried my brother Jim from this space only a few years before. I remember I was up here singing one Sunday morning. My mother was very ill, and Ruth Owen, our interim DRE, was with me, and I got a text that my mother was dying, and I looked at Ruth. She knew this might happen, and I said, I've got to go. So literally in mid-hymn, I left, raced up the highway to Boston, and Ruth took over. And I remember a Sunday when I was up at South Shore Hospital, early Sunday morning. I was with Kitty Ward, and our beloved Robbie Walsh passed that morning. And I raced down the highway so I could make it in time to start our church service with a candle and let you all know that our beloved Robbie Walsh had passed away that morning. This is a sacred space. This is a sanctuary. My friends, there have been countless times when I have said this to myself as I think about this space. Will you be my refuge, my haven in the storm? Will you keep the embers warm when my fire's all but gone? So friends, as we begin this thoughtful process of envisioning this space for the 21st century, I invite us all into a few moments of silent reflection. And I invite you to think about the joys and the sorrows that you have experienced here in this sanctuary space. Let's be together in a few moments of silence. Amen. Will you be my refuge, my haven in the storm? Will you keep the embers warm when my fire's all but gone? Will you remember and bring me sprigs of rosemary? Be my sanctuary till I can carry on. Carry on, carry on. This one knocked me to the ground. This one dropped me to my knees. I should have seen it coming, but it surprised me. Will you be my refuge, my haven in the storm? Will you keep the embers warm when my fire's all but gone? Will you remember and bring me sprigs of rosemary? Be my sanctuary till I can carry on. Carry on, carry on.
In a state of true believers, on streets called us and them, it's gonna take some time till the world feels safe again.
Will you be my refuge,
My haven in the storm,
will you keep the embers warm when my fire's all but gone? Will you remember and bring me sprigs of rosemary? Be my sanctuary till I can carry on. Carry on, carry on. You can rest here in First Parish or with a circle of friends, a quiet grove of trees or between two bookends. Will you be my refuge, my haven in the storm? Will you keep the embers warm when my fire's all but gone? Will you remember and bring me sprigs of rosemary? Be my sanctuary till I can carry on. Carry on, carry on, carry on.
First, just a few words of thanks to Catherine for inviting me to participate in this historic service today, for the Flaming Chalices who remind us that of all the memories and experiences here, the richness of music is near the top. And to Marjorie Hanlon for the flowers this morning, who I'm told she picked because she thought the colors somehow were complementary to the space. So I didn't notice that, but please join in the spirit of prayer. We have cause to be thankful for many things, but today we are especially thankful for the gift of freedom, for the gift of democracy, for the right, within limits, to shape and choose our own destinies. May we remember that these rights also carry responsibilities to ourselves and to our loved ones, to our fellow travelers on this journey, to the future generations who will live with and be shaped by the choices we make in the days ahead. And let us never forget, we also have a responsibility to those who came before us, our predecessors who sat in these pews and made choices we live with to this day. For they are our heritage, the bestowers of cultural and physical gifts which have enriched our spiritual and communal lives in the many ways we can barely fathom. As we move forward, exercising our power of choice, may we be humble, for there are no certain, no clearly right answers. May we be charitable, gracious, and open-heartedly loving to those with whom we disagree. May we collectively be wise and creative as we choose the future for ourselves and for the multitudes who someday will replace us in these pews. And may we be accepting, embracing the outcome, whatever it is, comforted by knowing it is the bounty of goodwill, of good people, working together for the common good. May it be so. Amen.
Good morning. I'm from the Midwest, and I don't know if that made me feel sufficiently warmly welcomed. Good morning. Oh, look at that. That's so much better. So, hey, it's so good to be with you all today. It's good to be here today, and it was good to meet so many of you last night at the wine and cheese gathering that we had, and I look forward to connecting with even more of you in our event after church. I sort of see last night, today, and this afternoon is one big conversation that we're having together. But before I jump into that this morning, I know you sort of already did it, but I'd just like to enlist your help real quickly, just to embarrass the steering team just one more time, because I think we know that they're doing a ton of work, right, that we can't even see. But what you may not realize is, as we make this turn to where we sort of kick the process into high gear, they're feeling a little stressed. So to wash them, right? Wash them with a little bit of it's okay and gratitude. I know this may not be the New England way, but first now the committee, could they stand? I know they're gonna hate this. Could the committee stand? All the members of the committee stand. And just to wash them over with, it'll be okay, we love you, and thanks. Could we just give some hoots and hollers and maybe even a standing ovation? A little bit, though? Thank you. That was awesome. That's great. And I also, by the way, I should thank Amy. Where's Amy? Jim's wife, Amy. So I need to also thank Amy this morning for sharing her trunk with us. Can everyone see that up front? Can everyone see that? I really appreciated Amy. And the reason I asked Amy for that trunk is because as I've been thinking about this visit and getting ready for it, trunks have been on my mind. Actually, 4 trunks belonging to 4 different friends of mine. They were all friends I met while working for our UUA in Boston and also in the New England area. All of them came from a long line of New Englanders. I think maybe even a couple of them were 9th, 10th generation. Is that even possible? Yes? Yes, it is? No? It's actually impossible for a Midwestern like me to even imagine those things. But all of them, all 4 of those friends I remember loved, just loved to talk about their lineage, right? And all of them talked about it differently, while all the details of their stories, their family stories, differed wildly. They all shared one thing in common: the trunk, or the box, or the crate, or the chest that their 4 families brought over with them on the journey to the new world. And I also remember that all 4 of my friends said that their family trunks, right? Their family trunks contained essential physical items, right, that helped them survive the journey on the way over. But they also said that every one of them also contained essential emotional items. Like family heirlooms, or maybe the family Bible, or even personal diaries. As my one friend put it, he said these were the truly precious items. I love that phrase, right? The truly precious items that reminded them who they were, right? That kept them connected to themselves and also each other, and also reminded them what the journey was all about. So I haven't been able to help myself from thinking, what might your precious items be, right? What would be your precious items that you would put in your trunk, so to speak, as you took this journey? I won't quite say to the new world yet, because we'll see how that all pans out. But what might your precious items be? And of course, that's really a question for you all to answer, but today I thought I'd kick off that conversation with a few answers of my own, and I want to be clear right away that the answers I'm giving today aren't your typical consulty kind of authoritative things of the items I think you should or you really must carry with you on your journey. But instead, as I've been getting to know you, really what's felt important to me is to lift up the items, right, that seem to already be here, or at least emerging among you. So instead of saying these are the items that I want you to pick up, I I think this morning I'm inviting you to think about these items as the items that I hope, at least I hope that you hold on to through the process and don't let go of. Does that make sense? Yes. Again, I'm a Midwesterner. You all have masks on. Can I see a shaking of a head or something? There. Okay. All right. So 3 precious items this morning. And the first story that I want to set that up. The first item I want to set up by sharing a story of mine all the way from my childhood. It's a story about green liver. And I know I saw some people already wrinkle their foreheads right there. This is a story from a child about green liver, and there's 3 things that you need to know to understand that story. So first of all, you need to know that growing up, my mom was a health food nut. The second thing you need to know from the story is that my father was in the Peace Corps when he was younger, and while there, he fell in love with these green curries. And the other thing you need to know is that my father is a Christian minister, and as part of that, it was always a rule in our house that we had to pray before dinner. And not only that, but it was our job, my brother and I's job, to have to do that prayer. And we were I was 5th grade, he was 2nd grade, and you know, we weren't stupid, right? We wanted to make this easier on ourselves. So we just made up our own prayer and we memorized it, and we just said the same thing all the time, every single dinner. I still remember it to this day. It was, "Dear Lord, thank you for this food that we're about to eat, and help others tonight who are not as fortunate as us. Amen." Dear Lord, thank you for this food that we're about to eat, and help others tonight who are not as fortunate as us. Amen. And so with that as background, there was this one night at dinner when my dad, my brother, and I were all sitting at the table, and my mom, she walked over, and we knew something was up. My brother and I knew something was up right away because when she came, she had her hand like tightly on this iron skillet. And not just that, though, she also had her hand tightly on the lid, and she kept that lid right on the skillet. And we knew something was up too because she started talking like this apologetic voice, this sort of sheepish voice where she said, now boys, she called us all boys. She said, "Now boys, I just want to remind you how much I care about your health." That was never a good sign, my brother and I knew. And she started talking about healthy food, and my dad, something was going on because he was really irritated, and he had a board meeting after that, and he said, "Come on, Barbara, this is ridiculous. I'm going to miss my meeting. Come on, get the food. We got to get this rolling." And she said, No, Chuck, I just want to explain that I really care about your health. And Chuck, you've had a stressful week, so I really, really wanted to do something special for you. And I can't remember all the details, but then my mom started talking about, green curries and iron skillets and something about a chemical reaction. And the next thing I knew, when she sat that iron skillet right in the center of our plate, she lifted up the lid. I kid you not. There was a trough of green liver and onions that was the color of your brown-green grass, all the way out front. Now, immediately, right, my brother looked at that, my 2nd grader brother looked at that, and he said, "No freaking way am I eating that." And then he went on, and I said something about, and if I am eating it, I'm going to need 9 bottles of ketchup, and that got me laughing, and that got him laughing, and then we kept, laughing back and forth like little kids do until finally, literally, my little brother was rolling on the floor laughing. But my dad wasn't laughing. And suddenly he looked at my brother, and he pounded his hand on the table, and he said, "God damn it, Timothy, you get up here and pray right now." You can laugh, it's funny, right? It's funny. And my brother was shook, right? None of us were laughing after that. My brother was scared straight, and I was a little bit worried, what's going on? And my mom seemed sad, and my dad seemed angry, and so my brother gave it his best try. We all held hands during the dinner prayer, and so he lowered his head, and he said, "Dear Lord, thank you for this food that we're about to eat, and help others tonight." And he looked up at my dad and he said, "Oh, Dad, I just can't do it. There's nobody less fortunate than us tonight." And then just like that, just like you're all doing, I don't remember much, but I do remember, just like you, we laughed. And right as we laughed, that all that tension that was in the space just went out of the room. And I also remember that as we all laughed, my dad was like still holding my hand, like squeezing it really tight, as if he didn't want to let go. So friends, why do I tell you that story? Well, simply put, as I think about this journey that you're about to go on, what I think I hope for most is that you are not like my family, at least at the beginning of the story, right? In other words, when the tension comes, which inevitably it will, right, during this process, when that weird, right, green liver energy starts to get in between all of your relationships and starts to float around this place, I don't want you to have your gaze get stuck there. I don't want it to be the only thing, right, that fills up the room. Instead, what I hope for all of you, most of all, above anything else, is that you will be able, like my family at the end of that story, to look up and notice your joy. And believe me, as a start to my sermon, I know that can sound a little silly or sentimental, especially because we don't know each other very well. I know that consultants are supposed to talk about serious stuff like strategic planning and staging and skills to avoid conflict and characteristics of growing churches. But here's the thing. As I've thought about you and worked to get to know you, I keep coming back to this thing I've noticed in your 21st century team and working with them right from the very first meeting. In the midst of tense discussions, in the middle of them disagreeing with each other, in the middle of them interrupting each other and annoying each other and even getting snippy with each other. I know that's hard to believe given the sweet group of people that you've assembled, but they do get snippy. And they even disagree with each other. But in the midst of all that, they also always laugh. And friends, I'm not sure you know how rare that is. I'm not sure you know how precious of a thing that is. I mean, in most churches, don't tell them or I might not get any more consulting gigs, but in most churches, when they're considering changes like yours, there's not a lot of laughter, to be honest. And so if your committee is a window into who the rest of you are, then it seems to me that my job, right, maybe my top job, my job above anything else is to help ensure that you all keep your laughter too. And I want to be clear this morning, when I say I hope that you keep your laughter and joy, I am not talking about the kind of joy that comes from people waiting to or wanting to still enjoy each other in the midst of difference and disagreement. No, the kind of joy I'm talking about, the kind of joy that I actually sense in you already is the kind of joy that comes from being able to step back and realize that these perspective changes, these possible changes that you are considering are giving you the opportunity to go on this great adventure together. This remarkable adventure, right? This remarkable adventure really of getting to imagine, create, and dream up something entirely new, right? No, the kind of joy that I'm talking about, the kind of joy that I really wish for you is the kind of joy that comes from people playing together, right? In the deepest sense, it's the kind of deep joy, right? The deep joy that comes from making the possible real. As I think about it, it's the kind, right? The kind of joy that comes from realizing that what you're really doing is not just making changes to your sanctuary, but you are making changes to your sanctuary that will open up an even bigger space for a whole new way of thinking about who you are. It's the kind of joy that comes from getting to do something right together that has the potential to significantly shape the future of your church, or to put it another way, it's the joy that comes when you realize, oh my God, right? Oh my God, we could be among the lucky few, right? The lucky few that get the amazing privilege of not just being able to be holders and caretakers of our history, but maybe even makers of our congregational history. It's the kind of joy that comes from realizing we are being offered the great privilege and great joy of being part of the generation that maybe, just maybe, gets to make our church and our faith relevant to the future. Amazing, right? Right? Yes? Anybody with me here? Anybody feel that kind of energy or know it? Because I think, that's what I'm guessing, that it is here. And again, it was a little bit of a whisper. So yes or no? Yes? Oh my God, see, they do talk back. I told you, there you go. So friends, that joy that's possible in the middle, that's the first thing. The first thing that I hope for you. I really hope as this process unfolds that you continue, right, to not let the green liver get in the way of your joy. And so to help you remember that, here's the first thing I want to give you for your trunk: an iron skillet. Notice, no green liver, it's already been removed. So now number two, right? The second precious thing I hope you carry with you on this journey. And again, let me get at it with a story. This one's not about me or my childhood, but this is actually a story about my wife. As Catherine said, my wife and I were co-senior ministers of the First Unitarian Church of Rochester. And on this particular day, I was working at home, but she was going into work. And you need to know also that during this week before she was going into work, she'd had a pretty rough week. She worked with the Planned Parenthood of Rochester, and they'd had this horrible sexist and even abhorrent backlash from a conservative group in town. And then the very next day, my poor sweet wife had gone to a minister's interfaith meeting, and she was the only woman there, and all the other guy ministers had this moment of not paying attention to her or not even noticing or recognizing she was there. So two of these sexist experiences, and all on this day. My poor sweet wife, it just made that week even worse, right? Because when she got off at the ramp to go to the church and she stopped at this stoplight, she looked up and there was this giant billboard that had these big letters right across the top that said, "Gentlemen, start your engines." And below that, it had this mattress with a big spotlight on it, and it said, "Try our new high-performance beds." Oh, not a good day for my wife. Couldn't even make it to church, came right back home, and for an hour just vented to me, like, I can't believe this, that we're still in this day, right, using women to sell mattresses in hotels. How dare them, right, tell these truckers, go out and just grab whoever you want and try out these beds. And she was like, I'm gonna start to petition, and tomorrow we're gonna get the church, and we're gonna get that down. And so I was, of course, a hugely supportive husband, and so given that we were gonna mobilize this the next day to work, we decided to go look at that billboard again just to get the layout of the area. And when we pulled off of the road and looked up, it was magic almost, because somehow, some way, somebody had magically in the middle of the night had come in and they changed the wording on the billboard. Because now as we both looked up, it didn't read, "Gentlemen, start your engines." It read, "Gentlemen, stop your engines." Stop your, that's funny, folks. It was even funny to my wife then, right? Because as she gave it that second look, right? It wasn't a sexist billboard. It was just a billboard encouraging a bunch of tired truckers to get a good night's sleep. And so with that story, right, that story in mind, here's the second thing that I wish for you. The second precious thing I hope you hold on to. The constant awareness that we all have glasses on, and that those glasses make it very hard for us to see and hear each other accurately on the very first try. And so we have to promise ourselves, right? Have to promise ourselves and each other that we will always take a second look. To help you hold on to that awareness and that need for second looks and second listens, I also want to give you a quote today to carry with you on this journey. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's a quote from a writer and philosopher named Anais Nin, and she writes this. She says, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. It's a pretty great quote, right? A pretty great quote. And it's also just another way, I think, of saying that my poor sweet wife can't be blamed for her warped first reaction. But I also think that it means that you, all of you, can't be blamed for what will be your warped first reactions during this journey of yours. And there will be warped first reactions, right? I mean, I know none of you will do this, but we all know the person next to you will. You know, one, I think you're going to have experiences like this where stories that even give, my wife's story a run for its money. For instance, I'm telling you, I'm betting right now, I'll bet Jim a lunch on this, maybe even a lobster roll, right? I'm betting that, for instance, someone on this journey is going to use the word technology. That'll be it. That's all they will really say. They'll end up just saying something simple like, I really hope we can put in new technology. And immediately, right, though, there'll be a group of us through our warped lenses, right, who will immediately react, and we're going to hear them as if they said, I want us to install not just a large screen in the front, but also 3 large screens in the front and 3 large screens in the back so we can play dueling TikTok videos as our worship meditations. And not just that, but what I really want is us to install curtains on the windows and put up these strobe lights so we can put all the light up front on the minister who's gonna not wear a suit and have a rock band right up here at front. That's what we're gonna hear, right? That's what some of us are gonna hear. And then right after that, right alongside that, just a few seconds later, just have that someone else on this journey is gonna use the word history. Right? Just that. Nothing much more than that. Probably just like with a simple phrase, I'm really concerned that we're going to leave our history behind. And right, boom, immediately after that, another whole bunch of us are going to hear that as them saying, I am completely against any change to the existing structures of the sanctuary, and I'm going to take my ball and go home. And not only that, but also my pledge, if I don't get my way, but before I do that, I'm going to chain myself to the pulpit and protest so I can protect it. That's what we'll hear. At least, again, some of us, that's what's going to happen. Again, can I get a few nods? Any of us think that might happen? See, I knew you were a humble bunch. It'll happen, friends. It just will. But here's the thing. The wonderful thing. Since you all have Anais Nin's quote and Karen's story ingrained in your heads, you won't act on those first warped thoughts. Right? You won't, because you have those in your head now. You won't react with something defensive or aggressive that makes those other people feel unheard or wrongly judged. You won't respond in a way that causes a fake fight, to erupt. No, because of my sweet wife's unfortunate encounter with that billboard and Anais Nin's quote, you will pause. You will pause and simply and humbly ask, can you tell me more about that? Right? Can you help me understand what that means? And here, friends, right, here's the cool thing about that, the amazing thing, that when you do that, when you have that second listen or ask for that second listen, I bet this is what you're going to hear. Again, I just bet it. You're going to hear from that I hope we get new technology person, you're going to hear them say, I just want to meet newcomers and new generations where they are at. From that I hope we don't leave our history behind person, I bet you're going to hear, I just believe. Right? I just believe we have this special and inspiring history, and I'm excited about passing that on to whoever comes next. And what about, right? What about that? I'd like to see the tablets moved person, right? Well, from them, I'm just betting that when you ask them to clarify, you're going to hear, it's just that those words on the tablets don't represent the gift that I've found here, and I fear they will turn newcomers away before they are able to find what I have found. And from that, I'm not crazy about the 70-foot pulpit person. I highly suspect you will hear them say, well, it just seems that pulpit seems to say that truth and wisdom come down from on high, when what I love about this church is how we prioritize that wisdom arises from us all. And I just want to make sure that newcomers get that right away. And I know, friends, it's not the way to ingratiate myself to you, but I know I'm being presumptuous here by telling you what you're gonna say, right, and gonna hear. And you all can tell me in our event right after this worship, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but really, from reading your surveys, from meeting and talking with many of you last night, and from hearing the stories that the committee has told about you, I really don't think these examples are those that far off. And the reason I want to particularly lift them up today is that each and every one of those examples, right, each of them are saying the same remarkable thing, if I'm hearing them right. Right? I mean, you heard it too, yes? Despite each of those comments, right? Each of those comments coming from very different places and expressing very different preferences, they all ended in the same place. They all came around to talking about and caring about those who will come next. From getting to know you, friends, just a little bit so far, I think that's true of you. Again, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think, as I listen carefully, the driving question that seems to underlie so many of your positions, even when those positions are opposed, seems not, will the sanctuary changes effectively still feed me? But instead, will the sanctuary changes effectively feed those who are yet to come? A few head nods, yes. And here's the thing, friends, which means that maybe here right at the end, I'm not just lifting up one, but maybe two precious things for your trunk, right? The first is from Karin's story and Aniastin's quote. The first thing I would want to add to your trunk is the need to stay aware of our warped lenses and the need for second looks and second listens. And to represent that, I offer for your trunk this elegant pair of glasses with the lenses broken out. But on top of that, there's also this very precious third thing, right? The needs of those who haven't come yet. And to represent that, I've found this wonderful welcome sign that reads, "Come in, we're open." Get at multiple levels that it's working on there. So friends, joy, humility, and those yet to come. Not a bad start for what might go into your trunk. I so look forward to hearing from you what else you need to plunk in there. May the conversation continue. It's so good to be with you on this journey. Amen.
Thanks, Scott. That was tremendous. We have wonderful images as we start our workshop in just a few minutes. So we're going to listen to Ed's postlude, and then Jim, where's Jim? Are we going directly into the workshop? Yes, we are. So when the workshop begins, if you need a body break or you need food, which is in the vestibule, it's available for you during the course of the workshop. But after the postlude, Jim will come up front and Scott will go down below and we will begin our workshop. So here's a little musical interlude as we begin that. Here we go. Here's Scott. Oh, actually, you're going to use this mic. Here's Scott.
Dustin. Folks online, that's where you'll be, and this is the best? Yeah. Okay, great.
Very exciting, right here. Yep.
Very young adult.
Oh. Yeah. Let's see. So who's participating in the youth fishbowl? Oh, they're coming back. Cool. So will you guys come on up, please? And there we go. You guys all set? You know, we have that button now. Good to see you. So youth and young adults. This is a fishbowl exercise, right? He's going to explain everything. Very cool.
I think, Catherine, some of the ways in which you could be helpful too is just to, in like a few minutes, get people back in.
Oh, sure.
So we are going to be beginning in about 2 minutes. No forming little groups, only kidding. Just come back in and sit anywhere in the sanctuary. The little group thing will happen later. So those of you who have already formed a little, no. That's okay. Come in and sit wherever you'd like, but no groups right now. So it looks like most everybody is back in. We have a few stragglers, but we're going to need to begin so we aren't here like for 2 hours instead of less than that. Got a lot of nods from the young people. They want to get going. They don't want to be as old as we are by the time this thing is done. Don't leave now. No, don't. After you've done your thing.
Where's Jim? Jim, are we ready to, are folks still filling up their plates or are they ready to come in? Okay. While folks are trickling in, steering team members, could you just sort of stand so I can see where you're at? Okay, great. Let's get maybe a couple of the steering team members on in this aisle, if we could. Because I'm gonna divide folks into groups so we can, yep. Yeah, Tracy, maybe even you. Jim, where are our recorders and facilitators?
All right, so let me see. I'm one, so I would be good.
So first, yeah, let's get.
Let me see who else. So Tracy is right next to Kate. Could you raise your hand if you're going to be a reporter facilitator? So great, Caroline, Elaine. We're looking, Scott, basically to gather people around these folks, right?
Yeah, that's why I was going to want the recorders. If a few recorders could come over to this side, so when we do break out into the small groups, we're not all clustered. So.
And I would mention that Carol Robeson is going to be the recorder for the folks who are on Zoom.
Okay. Oh, great, great.
Does somebody else want to come over by me?
Yeah, so Jim is so I'll explain our process in a second, but I think it's gonna be a lot easier if we can kind of get into what are gonna be our breakout discussion groups now.
That's right.
So what I would like you to do is try to find one of what we're calling the recorders or the facilitators that are standing up and kind of gather around them. And right now, Jim is looking terribly lonely.
And we have one extra facilitator over here who's volunteered to help us, Kathleen.
Kathleen. All right, so if folks we can get like around 10 folks by Jim and Kathleen.
Yeah, I'm pretty
right now.
If like a few people would come over here and be by me, I would greatly appreciate it. And then also by Kathleen. You gonna join me? All right, I got Jean, so that's a start. Well, she's going to be doing a group as well. So, okay, a couple more folks come over here. So what do we got over there? Caroline, do you have a group? All right, let's separate out a little bit. Maybe get a couple more folks over here. We're looking to get, 10 or less in a group, depending on how many facilitators we have. Elaine, where are you? And do you have 10 folks with you? About? All right, so who is this cluster over here? Who's this cluster over here? Tony, who are you with there? Which facilitator are you guys with? Okay, with Dorothy. All right, that's good. Got a big group there. Maybe a couple of folks could come over here. You're getting a nice group over there. That's a good start. I'm lonely here. It's good. Why don't we just sort of start spreading in here?
Hey, Jim, why don't you grab the cookie tray and put it by you? I suspect that'll pull some folks near.
There's a good thought. All right.
So friends, we just need a few more folks over with Jim and then we'll get going with our process.
Yes?
We'll go with it.
You guys over here, maybe? Can you guys come with me?
Yeah, I think let's just go ahead and start. We'll let folks trickle, and we can kind of corral afterwards, Jim.
All right, sounds good.
All right. I think we're going to begin. I want to explain our process. I'm just going to look around to see if I've got everybody. Look at everybody's eyes. Yes, everybody's got cookies and sandwiches. Yes, good. Okay. All right, so we know we really want to respect the committee, and I really want to respect your time today, so we're really going to try to keep things to an hour and a half, but I quickly want to just go over our process and give some context before we jump in. I mean, obviously the simple thing we're doing today is just starting to try to move from sort of gathering. So let me talk a little bit real quick for context. So before we talk about how, let me talk about where we're at in the story, so to speak. This isn't perfect, but I would say right now in the stage of the process, I would encourage you to think about we're at that moment where we're moving a little bit from the general to the more specific. Or another way of thinking is this, that we're moving a little bit from the just simply the gathering everyone's views to starting to move into conversation. So that's sort of where we're at. So what we're trying to do today is do some deeper listening to folks. Because like I had said in my sermon, this is the time when people actually are starting to talk about particular proposals, and we start to need the space to have, the room and the time to really clearly make sure we're understanding each other and what they mean when they say they want or hope for a particular thing. So that makes sense. We're kind of moving from the gathering information to the conversation stage, and from the general to the detail. And I should also say that none of that is to say that the listening process is like over, or the gathering process is over. That's going to continually be woven through the next few months, even as the conversation starts to narrow in. So that's the conversation. That's sort of the context and the goal. So today is about careful listening, or those second looks and listens, and also a chance for conversation. And the way we're going to do that, and let me I guess I look here to also honor the folks online.
You're on camera.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little odd because all you are behind me, but I'll talk to you this way. That's great.
Well, the idea, I think, is for them to have a seat here.
Yeah, well, I'm talking to the people online right now.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, all right. So let me talk a little bit about process so you don't feel lost, right? So we're going to use what's called a fishbowl technique. So the first stage is most of you are going to be in a listener role. So don't get anxious about that. There'll be time for your voices to be heard and for conversation. For this first stage, really inviting you to sort of do deep listening practice and really listen to folks. And so the way we're going to structure that is we're going to ask two groups to sit up here up front. I'm going to have a conversation with them, and you are listening. Does that make sense? It's kind of what's called a fishbowl approach. And then after, we're going to have two fishbowl conversations where you sit and listen. And as you're listening, what I would invite you to do is two things, almost sort of two contradictory things. Is that as you're listening, whether it's keeping it in your head or writing it down on a sheet of paper, you're just doing the basic thing of really trying to listen carefully to the details, right? To everyone's particular opinions. And yet alongside of that, which feels maybe a little bit contradictory, is also try to pay attention to the one or two comments or positions or perspectives that pop for you. Sort of think about it as like you're doing meditative practice and you're waiting to find the thing that sort of shimmers, or in other words, you're trying to listen for the voice or the opinion that sort of has an emotional gravitational pull, right? The thing that pops for you. That can be maybe somebody says something that opens your perspective to something new. It also can mean, we shouldn't be afraid right now of talking about what worries us. So it might, your emotional energy or what might pop for you might be around somebody that, something that makes them, you're worried about that direction. So you're gonna, after listening to the two groups, you're gonna have on your sheet of paper, like sort of you'll have a bunch of stuff in your head, but you're wanting to go into your group ready to talk about the one thing in particular from everything you've heard that pops for you. Does that make sense? Thumbs up? Simple enough? Okay. Now what I want to do is, so two fish bowls, and then we're going to break out. And also I want to, I guess I want to just pause for a second and just talk about the two groups. I want to first say that if we took the blood pressure of your steering committee right now, they would all be 10 points higher than they normally are. So I don't want to embarrass them, but I want to let you know they were very stressed about having to pick two groups out of, dozens of ways we could have categorized folks and pulled in groups. So I first want to say right away that this was a very hard thing, but also that the committee and I are working on how to have chances for other spotlight groups. I mean, a lot of these are artificial in terms of grouping people or calling people, so there's a lot of nervousness, I would say, on the committee, and maybe even I'll own that myself. So I say that right away so no one thinks, right, oh, these two groups we're listening today are the ones that the committee's really listening to. Does that make sense? I think that's, committee members, can I have your head nod? That's what we're worried about, right? We don't want that misunderstanding. And so let me talk about the rationale on why this was really hard, but the two groups. So the first groups that we want to lift up are young adults. Youth and young, yes, youth, and I think you guys get to call yourselves what you want, right? Youth, young adults, all right. Now why these folks? So two reasons were the thought. Number one is I do think, we don't mean it, but typically younger generations in our congregations, their voices, I'm saying sort of the obvious, right? Their voices don't get heard. So we want to make sure that that's there. But more importantly, I think, and this puts a lot of pressure on you guys, these folks represent the future of Unitarian Universalism. And the idea here is that they have a window, not that we all don't, but they have a special window into what Unitarian Universalism might be, and frankly, what liberal religion might be. That sounds very grandiose, but that really is the idea behind it. So again, not to put too much pressure on yourself, on you guys, but that's sort of the goal for that, all right? And then the second fishbowl group we're gonna do is what might be called future leaders. Now again, committee and I were very scared about what to call these groups, right? For two reasons. Number one, because the future leaders that we bring up, that's a lot of pressure on them, right? They didn't even know they were gonna be future leaders of all the committees and stuff of this board, but, right? But the other piece is, I think the big worry, and again, I'm just trying to be transparent so we understand, so there's no misunderstanding, or we don't, that somehow by designating the future leaders, we're somehow prioritizing them over current leaders, or, and this isn't the committee's term, but my own term, what I would call the builders. And again, not trying to dishonor younger groups or new people to the church, but I think you can recognize, right? We all know, even though it's fuzzy to figure that out, there's a group of folks who have been what I would call the builders, right? The ones who have sat in those seats of leadership, who have, with their time, talent, of treasure, have given themselves to this church. And so that was the builders are the ones that we aren't getting to today. That was one of the top ones. There's a number of others. But that was the big worry, that we didn't want to make folks who sort of think about themselves as builders feel dishonored. And so I want to assure everybody that we're going to build that into the process, where actually the builders and some other groups will get some focus and a chance to do this in different ways in the future. So does that make sense? Yes? Anybody feeling uncomfortable or mad that we picked the groups we did? That's a lot of pressure, right? Who's going to raise their hand to that? But you understand what I'm saying. Everybody good on that? Okay. All right, so friends, come on up. And folks online, I'm gonna stand over here, so I think you can see me, but I don't wanna ignore you all, but I wanna make sure our folks online can hear us. Hey guys. Yep. Yeah, that sounds great. All right, do we have a mic, Jim, okay.
I do, right here. We just wanted to be sure, particularly for the folks online and for folks in the back, that everybody can hear. And so for this microphone in particular, if you hold it like this, people will actually hear you, so.
Yeah, and then maybe if you could stick around and help me a little bit. Yeah, this is gonna date me a little bit, but I'm glad to have Jim, because doesn't he look a little bit like Phil Donahue? You remember the? All right, so let's see, why don't we first, because I don't want to be presumptuous here, but let's quick. We're going to try to just to be like 20, 25 minutes, but quickly, if you could just go and share your name at least, and maybe how long you've been around, if that makes sense. Just real quick, let's do that first.
Good morning, Justin Connor. I've been around here since I was very, very young. Let's put it that way.
Is it Justin? You know what? Let me change my mind real quick. Justin, stay standing. So your name, how long you've been here, and then also a sentence about how you're feeling about being up here in this fishbowl.
Comfortable.
Oh.
My name's Tamara. I'm the daughter of Caroline and Graham Mitchell. and I've been going to this church since 2006? 4. So yeah, I was in Sunday school and I moved away to university in 2018, so yeah, it's been a bit hard getting back. I live in Belgium now, so I'm here for a month visiting and glad I can see some familiar and new faces too.
Oh, great.
And yeah, I'm feeling excited to be here. Like you said, we're the future of, you know, the UU Church, and I think it's important to be up here and share our opinions.
Yay, thank you.
I'm Zach Hamilton, and I've been in this church since probably before preschool. It's been a very long time, and I guess I'm just excited to be here right now.
Oh, awesome.
Hi, I'm Marley Hamilton. I've been here since I was like, I don't know, probably same as Zach, like since preschool. And I'm excited to like share his thoughts with all of you.
Hi, I'm Owen Hamilton, their sibling, and I, probably about the same time, and it's fun. I'm excited to be here. It's awesome.
Hi, I'm Julia Connor. I've been in this church my whole life, and I'm 18 now, and I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say.
Hi, I'm James, and my pronouns are he, him, his, just because I thought that some of that has been kind of like, pronouns have been a semi-focus of youth for a little while. So anyways, I've been here since like at least Christmas of 2007, because I played Baby Jesus that year, and I am really excited to get into this.
Oh, great.
My name is Sam Clifford. I've been going here for also pretty much my entire life, and I'm definitely happy to be up here and see what everyone else has to say.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Michaela, and James, your example is so wonderful. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm the youth advisor, so I've been here since September 2020, so not nearly as long as many folks, and I feel very honored to be sitting beside all of these amazing people.
Oh, that's great. All right, so it's so great that there's so many of you. So I'm going to ask like a few questions. It's just we get to talk, they get to listen and kind of watch and listen in on us. So the first thing I want to say is I'm going to just start to ask some questions. We aren't going to kind of go in 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'd like you just, when I ask a question, I don't know, take a deep breath and think of whether you really are feeling a strong response. There'll be enough questions, so not everybody has to answer, so don't feel, don't get in that, we all feel like, oh my gosh, there's a question, I have to say something really smart or speak to it. Only speak to it if you're moved. Does that make sense? Oh, yeah?
So I'm not hearing any of the youth. I'm old and I've got a little bit of a hearing issue. So I'll just ask people to speak up if they could.
Okay, why don't we also have, because the youth can see you, because I'm going to focus on them, but if you aren't hearing the youth, so we don't interrupt them when they're talking, just raise your hand when you cannot hear them. Are you guys okay with that? Yeah, let's keep that. Yeah, so is it okay? I think we'll make that an individual choice there. Are you also, I also want to honor you. Are you comfortable with other folks next to you? I can put you on the spot, I don't. Okay. So let's work on do what you're comfortable with, but also just kind of speak up. And if you can't hear, instead of interrupting someone when they're talking, just sort of raise your hands and then we can be aware of that and speak a little more.
Scott, one advantage is that you can really eat the mic. You don't have to worry about putting your lips on it when you have a mask on, so you can get it right there.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys see that okay?
All right, so let's start off with an easy one. All right, so get in your heads. This is because you guys are the experts here. Think 50 years from now. 50 years from now, how will worship change? Oh.
I believe that I am probably the person that should answer that, because I have read into, well, I've read about and watched a lot of videos about some new technologies that will change every component of society forever. And I think that that there will be a lot of religious arguments for a lot of these technologies. The two that I see having the most friction are stuff like AI, though that's probably going to be farther in the future than the next thing that I'm going to say, and the thing that I think is going to cause the most friction is genetic modification.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Well, I say this because some faiths may think that these technologies are blasphemous, and I think that that is not the case. So it's probably only one component of it, but I thought that
That's
I
awesome.
should be the person to note that fact.
Thank you. And we're just popcorning too. Like, don't feel pressure to kind of explain a lot of it. Just sort of name what you think are, what's the big change is going to be.
So one thing that I feel like is going to happen is I feel like Unitarian Universalism is going to grow a lot more than it already has, and it's going to be a lot more popular in the future. And so I feel like there's going to be much more people attending, and I feel like it's going to turn into a much bigger religion, and it's going to, a lot more people of all different ethnicities and everything are going to realize how good it is, and then just be able to just experience it in its whole. So.
Oh my gosh, no, that's awesome. That's really great too, about being prepared for a diversity that we're working towards and having the hope that it'll come. That's great.
Yeah, I also think that it's going to stay a lot of the same. There's going to be a lot of things that stay the same. We're still going to meet. There's still going to be people talking in person. We're still going to sing together. There's always going to be music. So I know there's a lot of new technologies. We talk a lot about technologies and change and all this new stuff, but I think it will still stay, for the most part, the same. So I don't think we should be scared of the future, is what I'm trying to say. We shouldn't be scared.
Thank you. All right, deep breath, two more. Who's feeling something that they really feel strongly about when they think about 50 years from now?
I'm kind of obsessed with this topic because I'm in seminary, but I think that church in 50 years will not be confined to a building. And I think that there's room for worship in places other than buildings in general. And it may not have to look a certain way.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So now, let me just look around. So now I'm going to move us through a number of questions so these guys have a chance to hear a number of different perspectives. But this is well, I don't know if it'll be a hard one, but I guess if you can think about and articulate just in a few sentences, right, why the prospect of changes to the sanctuary are important to you. Not assuming they are, but if they are, why are you feeling sort of not a disinterested, but you're almost even a sense of urgency? Why do you feel that changes to the sanctuary are important to you? Sort of have your heart or your hope, so to speak.
Well, was that too loud?
Don't worry about it.
Okay, cool. Well, I kind of already spoke to this a bit in my testimonial, but I think it's really crucial that we change, that we change and adapt, because
if this stays the same that it was 200 years ago, almost, when the meeting house was built. And we're already seeing this with the numbers in our congregation falling. We don't have as many people here as we used to. If we don't change, then we're just going to kind of die out, and we're not going to be bringing in enough new people. And the people who, need to be here and that UU would be good for aren't going to find a home here.
Thank you. How about others? Why does this matter?
So I know a lot of adults around my age that I went to Sunday school with don't live in the area anymore. And for me, coming back for the holidays when I'm visiting, it's nice to have familiarity when I come here back to church. But yeah, at the same time, I agree there are changes with our generation that I think would be welcome to see. I last year enjoyed the Zoom online and the Christmas service online. And yeah, I just thought that was amazing how quickly we were able to set that up. And yeah, I'm sure this popcorn session will come up with some more good ideas for changes. But yeah, at the same time, it's important to me because there's the familiarity to balance when, especially for people that are away from home, that want to come back and enjoy that too. Yeah.
That's great.
I think that we need to we have to keep in mind how what we mean when we say something in this congregation.
And keep it close.
And what I mean by that is you can say a word, but what you mean by it is open to interpretation. So I think that we should try to be more defined in our language, in how we talk about prayers and all that jazz. And we should have more input on and that type of stuff as we go forward. And I think that will help us in any changes we make to this congregation.
Thank you. All right, deep breath. Any others of why this feels important to you? All right, so now, if not, let's do a popcorn thing. So this is a fill in the blank, all right? It's gonna be so frustrating because you're gonna wanna explain why you filled in the blanks the way you did. So it's gonna be really hard, all right? So one thing I hope gets changed is blank. One thing I really hope stays the same is blank. Okay? And by the way, can we all just, can they say whatever they want? Not pressure on folks. Again, if that's not grabbing you, just when you feel moved and ready, go ahead. Yep. One thing I hope stays the same is blank, and one thing I hope gets changed is blank. Oh, great.
Well, one thing I hope gets changed is the welcoming feeling of the sanctuary, or the lack thereof. And one thing I hope stays the same is, of course, our Unitarian Universalist principles that give us this, or those who have been here a while, this welcoming congregation that we already have.
Oh, that's so great. That's great. And by the way, friends, as folks are talking, I mean, do put a mental note, right? So much of what we're trying to do today is start to move in that phase, not just from collecting opinions, but to conversation. So when you hear something up here, I mean, I'm purposely doing this fill in the blank, almost to force you to have to go to folks later on and say, what did you mean by that? So I'm really hoping you're paying attention to what people are doing with their popcorn, and I really would encourage you to be able to have actual conversations with folks, if that makes sense. Go ahead and we'll take a few more.
One thing that I hope really changes is like how we define sanctuary, and that it will like that we like state that to us, by definition, a sanctuary also means a truce ground where we can play devil's advocate if we want or need to. And one thing that I hope stays the same is our well, I suppose this may sound a little contradictory, but our differences of opinion, and that, because that is really what makes you.
Thank you. And yep, go ahead, great.
One thing that I hope stays the same about the church is all the wonderful people who come to it and attend. But actually, one thing that I think we should change is, believe it or not, the layout of the sanctuary.
Okay. And maybe one or two more, and let's focus the question, focus it on the sanctuary. You can say what you want, but one change about the sanctuary is you're thinking about this space, because right now that's the big thing we're focusing on, right? So when you think about this space, one thing in here that you hope is changed, and one thing you hope stays the same.
Okay, well, one thing I think needs to stay the same is how welcoming everyone of everyone's opinions, and how much everyone cares about other people. And one thing that needs to and one thing that needs to change is I didn't really think about that until you said that.
That's
so
okay.
I'll think about it. I'll get it back.
That's all. All right, maybe one or two more. Yep.
One thing that I hope changes is the plaques. I hope they are taken down, to be specific. And one thing that I hope stays the same is the love and support we all offer one another.
Okay, two more.
One thing that I think should stay the same is the love and support everyone has in this room for each other, and being able to look at everybody when we're speaking. And then one thing I think that should change is the feeling that you have in this room. If you're new and you walk in, the feeling that you should have when you come in.
One more.
One thing that should stay the same is the acoustics. I think that's one of the most exciting parts of this sanctuary. Hopefully we can make the visuals of the sanctuary more exciting, to the point where they are as exciting as the acoustics.
That's great. Go ahead. We've just a few more minutes. Go ahead.
One thing I think should stay the same is this beautiful sense of community that's developed here. I'm always checking in with my parents, what's going on with you? Or I love that I can walk down the aisle and recognize so many faces that I've grown up to know, and I'm sure a lot of you guys feel the same way. But I agree with Julia about the plaques. I don't think they reflect the UU values as what they are. But the wood is antique and beautiful. I think that could be great to save. It's just the message coming through. I think that would be one thing to change.
You guys are great. This is awesome. So one more thing, and then we'll have to move to the next, but let me think which question I think would be best. let's do that one. As you think about talking to all these folks, what is one thing you think they might misunderstand or not get about what younger generations might want in terms of the space or the worship? How might you feel like you think you might be misunderstood or misheard? It's a hard question. Go ahead.
One thing that I hope is not misunderstood, I hope I just said that right, is that any of the ideas about change that, anyone is suggesting up here, it comes from a desire to share this community with more people because this community has beautiful things to offer. And also that this is from an archaeology and historic preservation perspective, that people throughout history have made changes or edits to their surroundings as messages to people in the future. So I think that we can inevitably do the same thing and let people know through those changes how wonderful this community is and that it's here for them.
Oh my God, that's almost a mic drop. But anybody got one more, or should we drop it there? One more? No? Go ahead.
We leave when we're done here at this youth group and stuff like that, like we go away. And I think that some people misunderstand that we do not truly care about this place. We really do. And I think the fact that some of us are back or showing up when we have homework to do, we do really deeply care about this place. And it's not that we do not care about the history of it. I've made a lot of friends, people that are several generations away from my age. It's one of the great parts about this church. So just don't misconstrue and think that we care about different things than you guys do. We care about the same things. We care about more different things. But there is a lot of commonality in our points of view.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes, folks are snapping here. Okay, one more and then we'll move to the second group.
I think that everyone should understand that we are that this place, this kind of ties into what Justin said. Not only do we care about this place, but this place, the moments that we've had in this church will likely stay with us till the rest of our lives, for the rest of our lives.
Thank you. Can you all thank them for us? All right, thank you guys. I think there's still some sandwiches and cookies too, but feel free to go out and be listeners now. Yes, so why don't you especially look for groups that haven't. So if you're gonna stay for the breakout groups, try to find a little circle there. And while we're transitioning, can the folks who have volunteered to be part of and picked to be part of the future leaders come on up? Oh, okay. Thank you. I think when I said that piece that they don't know it yet, but they're going to be chosen to be on committees and committee chairs, maybe that made some of them sheepish now to come forward.
Yes.
That's perfect. 5 or 6 is perfect. That's great. No, yep, you're in the fishbowl now. That's great. Thank you, guys. So I think what I'd like to do is for this first question, again, let's say names, but I'm going to give you a question with that. So go ahead and say your names and how long you've been here, but then answer this first question and take your time with it a little bit. But as you were sitting there listening to the youth, this is going to be hard because I need you to pick one thing, right? What one thing actually popped for you? Not in terms of, I mean, it can be what you agreed with or disagreed with, but one that just sort of, again, shimmered and you're like, oh my God, that's so important for me to keep in mind. So take some time to think about that and just say, you know, your name and then how long you've been here and one thing that really, really struck you as you listened to the youth.
So I'm Carolyn DiCristofano, and I've been with you, what, 3-4 years? I don't know, it's been mostly COVID time. And because I'm older than those young people, I can't remember anything they said specifically, but I wrote it down. I think what really struck me was a very strong sense on the part of some of you, on definitely wanting to see physical changes to the sanctuary. There's a real commitment to that.
That's great, thank you.
My name is Alexa Howell. I have been coming to this church for my entire 34 years. I was really struck by the youth because I remember being a youth here. And what I found really interesting was their sort of how much they all agreed on how welcoming and supportive this community is, while also feeling like this sanctuary does not reflect that. So that is what struck me.
Thank you. That's great.
Graham Mitchell, been here 17 years, husband of Caroline and father of Tamara. Was first, I think, in awe of this beautiful space that we have here. Some aspects of the inner sanctuary didn't really appear to me until later. But I will say the question that's upon us is, what is the youth? My aha was the importance of technology to them. It's part of their daily lives, and I think we always look at technology as something that's displacing us, or it's sort of a sacrifice to have to use technology, whereas they see it as an augmentation of the experience. And I think, you know, that's something we just have to keep in mind.
Oh, Graham, that's so great. And I don't want to interrupt the flow, but a little ding went off in my head that Catherine had said earlier that you were among the first to kind of be part of the Soul Matters sharing circle. But of the last 5 congregations that joined, now there's only 3 of them out there, so I don't want to, but the last 5 congregations that joined, 2 of them were completely online church. I can't remember, This Life, or I don't know who else, I even forget what the world was, but it's a completely 2 Unitarian churches online, completely, you know, in the whatever, the internet world. I find that fascinating.
And how you replicate this beautiful space and environment
in that space.
In a reached world. Yeah.
Hi, I'm PJ Simeone. My family and I have been coming here for a little over 5 years. We love it here. And the thing that really stuck out for me was the commitment and how important this church, this place is for our youth. And it really hit me hard and inspired me. And I think that's wonderful. So.
Oh, thank you, PJ.
My name's Liz Chrisman. I started coming to this church, I think it was in 1st grade or something like that. So, and 2 of my kids grew up through the church school, and I know it was a huge impact on their lives. And as Tamara said, they're always wanting to check in and how's things going and what's going on at church. So what struck me with the kids, the youth today, speaking, was just that they seem very open to change, and but also them speaking about the familiarity of the space and how that they really valued that. Didn't make it seem like they want to just wipe it all off and, you know, just go.
Yeah.
You know, they really felt connection to the space.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
I'm Heidi Connor. Our family started coming to the church in 2001. We basically came here for our kids. That was one of the things that drew us here. So one thing that stood out to me when they were talking was just how important this community is to them. It was very moving to me to hear them all kind of articulate that. I think that I listened to them pretty carefully at home, but that really just struck me.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Thank you, thank you. All right, so again, like I did with the youth, you don't have to answer this. We don't have to go in order. So I'm almost tempted to say Quaker style, right? Like, listen to your deep inner voice, and if your inner voice is really shouting and yelling, go ahead and speak it. If your inner voice is saying, yeah, kinda, don't feel as moved to speak, all right? So, quick pointed question. You can answer it in one sentence if you want, but you can take a couple sentences to explain if you want as well. But for you, what is at stake in this conversation about making sanctuary changes? What's at stake? The bigger what's at stake for you?
To me, it's pretty simple. What's at stake is really the future of this church, and the chance for people to experience the wonderful things that I've experienced here.
Thank you, PJ.
What's at stake for me is my children and their ability to go through church school the same way I did and feel like this is their home.
I think we need to be clear about our intention and what this sanctuary really means for people, for all people, and keep that in mind.
Thank you. You can take your time, just what's at stake?
I think what's at stake when I reflect on it is our relationship, the relationship with the past, the relationship with the future. So it's kind of this thread that runs through and connects that I feel it just needs to be handled carefully.
Yeah.
With thoughtfulness.
So I think that question is really challenging for me because on one hand, I know the physicality of a space is really important to creating an experience, but I also think that in the end, it comes down to how people are and how we worship together, how we function together. It's a hard question to answer.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, in that spirit, let me give you some harder questions. Now you're really giving the whole church a gift right now, so I'm wanting to put a little pressure on you. Not pressure, but just recognize that this can feel very tense a little bit. But so it occurs to me, and when we've talked about the committee, this really is the turn. You know, it's almost comfortable when you're gathering information, right? Making sure everybody's voices are heard. What that green liver energy I was talking about usually comes when we start to talk about specifics. And so I'm going to put you sort of on the hot seat with that and ask you some questions about specifics. So I want to acknowledge that this is hard. I also, they can say what they want. Oh, wow, I needed a little louder than that if I were you. Yes? All right, so, and you don't have to speak to this if it isn't where you're at. But again, this isn't so much, this is about your personal opinions, but this is also a window. I mean, the big gift you're giving to the congregation is thinking about where new leaders are at. And as people make votes, right, they're not just making votes for what I want to change, but I think they're thinking of how do I help the committee make decisions that will somehow honor everyone's voices. So your job isn't to honor right now everyone's voices, but to help others hear kind of what you represent. Does that make sense? Okay. And again, we're moving from general to particular. So, and don't get nervous when I say this, because we're still going to be doing listening, right? We're still going to be doing listening. Nothing's a done deal. Nothing's written in stone. But so far from conversations, from tabulating things from the survey, there are some things that are starting to emerge. Again, not as done deals, but things like the winds seem to be blowing in a certain way. So this is part to double check some of this. So one of the trends or the winds is about the tablets. Almost the top trend that's emerging from all of this. And what's interesting, and this is, I mean, I would say this is across the board from what we're seeing in all groups, but the specific proposal that seems to be rising to the top, again, nothing's a done deal, is honoring them, but moving them to a different space, not making them disappear. So I'm going to be very particular here, right? Moving them to a different space, somehow working very carefully to tell the story of them, whatever that means. I mean, I think that's part of this can be exciting for folks, right? But then also, let me be clear, folks who want them, and most people want it not blank, but replaced with something that speaks to who we are. So obviously the natural one that's kind of popping up in discussion is the principles and our sources. And I think even what's unanimous is, but it should somehow look the same, almost more in terms of the frame. So I'm being very particular here, right? Again, rest of the details completely unclear. And the idea there, of course, is to have some of our values up front, but honor somehow not just the architectural integrity, but there's a story, there's a feel to all this that folks, I think, unanimously don't want to mess up, that sort of implicit or unconscious feel of things. So not everybody has to speak, but where are you at on that? Would you raise your hand and vote for that tomorrow, or would you not, and why? Go ahead.
I would raise my hand and vote for something like that tomorrow. My journey in Unitarianism, I was at also a church in Virginia that had a very similar communication on the altar and on the front space, and I think it brought in a lot of people, diverse people, and I think if that's truly what we're looking for here, that kind of community, we should be bold and make that change.
Thank you, Graham.
I totally agree, and the only thought I would have is I'm really curious to see what the youth who mentioned wanting to really make this more exciting would have to say about that before.
Oh, great point.
But because that's perfect for me. It's changed, but not too much. So.
I'm just going to keep it simple and say that I would absolutely vote for that today or tomorrow. I think that it's important to reflect our values up front for newcomers, for our kids who get bored listening to the words that are being said and choose to instead read the things that are around them.
I would also vote for that today. And I would just say this briefly, that when I first came in here, this never even occurred to me. I went to a Protestant church, so I didn't, it's my feeling about it has always been, what's the big deal? But then I spoke to my wife, who is Jewish, and you were really, so I just wanted to say that because I've come around to that, and this isn't about me, and that's where I try to keep it for myself. So I would vote for that because I do, like everybody else, think it really should reflect, our principles and be something that's appealing for the people that need to be here.
Thank you, PJ.
Yeah, I would also think that sounds fine to me. The tablets could go completely away and I would be okay with that. But I do really, it makes me cringe to have that writing up there. And I think about not just when we're here, as the congregation is here, I think this space is used for a lot of other things too, funerals of people that don't necessarily come to this church, weddings. And I think about those people that are sitting in the pew waiting for something to happen and they're reading that and not getting any sense of what this congregation is about. And, maybe that's a place where we might recruit some people if there was something that represented what we were. So that's one of the things that always comes to mind. And the fact that as a kid, I sat here and read them all the time too. And, because you are often not paying much attention to what's being said. So if that can reinforce what we believe, that's going to be educational for our kids.
Thank you.
I would also vote for that right now, because I think that what we believe right now should be what is right there. But I also think it's good to keep a relationship with the past, that continuous relationship. But what we don't believe anymore shouldn't be having the prime spot, I think.
Thank you. All right, let's continue. And I'm going to, just so we have time to really honor and let people chat, I'm going to ask you to sort of popcorn a little bit, which is always hard, right? Because when you say something, you want to be able to explain or qualify it. But keep in mind, what we're all committing to each other right now is people will talk to you, you will talk to them. There'll be plenty of that time, okay? So the second emerging thing, all right? So the emerging proposal, I want you to, again, this one's harder, it's a little more fuzzy, it's almost one you smell versus see, has to do with the pulpit. The winds, right, seem to be, no, let's not tear down this pulpit, and instead let's work and put money behind it to start to think about ways to redesign the space, even using some things we have, so that there are other options for where the pulpit actually can be. So it has less of a top down, but we have options. So it's not like we get rid of one, but we keep options. And not to do too much to the front, but also maybe start to think creatively about the spaces here for more staging, for more, when there are 600 people in here, and more the ability to move music up front is some of the piece. In a way that people can see and not below. So staging, but no moving the pulpit. And then, well, hold off. There's one more piece of that, but I'll leave that for the next one. So is that something that would bum you out? That seems spot on. Again, not noticing your needs, but think of yourself as a leader. Does that seem to be something you'd vote for because it represents enough of your needs, but honors where you think the church is at and would honor other folks? Or does that feel like, are you disappointed if that is the vote that turns out? Does that make sense? Okay. Not everybody has to speak either. If you feel moved, go ahead on that.
Will I kick us off? I think that's the right kind of cadence to this decision. One thing I did hear from the youth is that they also look for more interaction with the pulpit, and I think a lot of that has to do with the style of the minister and also how she feels comfortable, obviously, but just being also here at other functions, funerals and other types of functions. I think there's a lot more dynamic with the congregation that would probably be better served by a different layout.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Graham.
I think the pulpit's beautiful, but I do like the idea of shaking it up a little bit, having more variety and different ways to use the front of the church.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. I think, as we look forward to creating community, sorry, I'm not popcorning.
That's okay. We have a very roomy 4 minutes and 13 seconds left, so don't feel pressure.
It's just the more variety we can have, the more variety in interaction and connection and symbol we can have.
And just in the name of time, I'm curious, would anyone feel, I really hope that's not the way the vote goes? Thank you. That's interesting. All right. I think we have time for one more. I wish we had a fourth that's arising. I'll give away the fourth and we'll figure out a way to talk about it later, but that has to do with color. Color and energy in the space. So we'll leave that for something we can talk about later, but let's talk about technology, right?
So as we've listened carefully to all of the surveys, as we've listened carefully to discussions, as the committee has tried to target and even talk to individual people, there's only one. Only I want the 3 screens up front and the 3 screens in back for the TikTok dueling thing, okay? Everybody else, again, not everybody, I want to speak, but the emerging piece is that what we mean by new technology, at least right now, is yes, a screen, maybe even a bigger screen than many people would be comfortable, but one that's big enough to start to think creatively, be prepared for the future, for visual meditations, for folks to be able to see hymns on the thing. So it's big enough that the type can be big. But both of those reasons, practical reasons, but also, aesthetic visual pieces. So we're not talking small, we're talking fairly big. We're not talking about size of getting rid of a window. It's a little tricky about where we go, not center. Nobody seems to want that screen in the center. So sort of off somehow in a way that doesn't disrupt the windows, which, by the way, not a single person in this place wants to change there's one, his name is Frank, I haven't met him yet, but nobody wants to change the simplicity, and the window, ironically, what I'm hearing is the most precious thing in this space for almost everyone is the windows. So we're not talking about a screen that messes that up, but somehow to achieve that. And then alongside that, significant amount of money into the technology. One of the best things I heard is someone was saying, we don't even realize this now, but because we're all used to watching TV, cameras flip different views of people when they're talking. And so when we have equipment, no offense, Dustin? No offense to Dustin, right, at all. But when you have one camera that's just on someone and just goes in and out, most people in the future, that's jarring because it's not, it'd be like listening to a scratchy radio for some folks. So high equipment to be able to have the online experience, top quality. So whatever that means, I'm not even a tech person, but so there's the feeling of online isn't equal to what other people are experiencing. So again, real quick on that, it can be just quick thumbs up or whatever you want, but if that's the vote, does that disappoint you? Does that feel like it doesn't go far enough? Is that much less than you had hoped?
I fully support that, and I think we need to think in all these decisions, the guiding principle really needs to be, how do we, pursue this mission of bringing more people to the church and giving them access? And that is just a wonderful way to provide access. Just along with, it's fantastic just to sign up to be able to see people up on the balcony. So there's a lot of aspects to it. They're great, but primarily bringing more people in, giving them the opportunity to access this wonderful thing is important. So.
Thank you, PJ.
So I agree it's important to bring people in, and there are good reasons to do it, but how we do it is going to matter a lot to me. This is such a private part of myself. I share within the community a little hesitantly, but I don't want to be on screen, and I don't want to be sort of lensed while I'm having a spiritual or personal experience. That would almost make me not come.
Oh, that's so good to share. Thank you. Thank you.
I would probably get in big trouble if I didn't respond to this question with my family when I get home later. I think that there is such a complicated relationship with technology for all of us, and we need to explore that a bit better. I think it can be done, though, and done well.
Okay. Anybody that would say that goes too far or not far enough? Or even just say, I don't have a strong feeling about it. Again, you're functioning as a window for the rest of the congregation into a group. I don't feel strongly, it doesn't matter, that feels too little or too much.
I think it's having the bigger screen or 2 on either side or something seems okay to me. I would want to have times when that was definitely shut off, though, and I would love for it if it just looked white and just blended. Like even having a big black box on the wall doesn't feel good to me. But yeah, so I could just see almost like sometimes we have like diverse music week. It'd be like no screen week at church or something like that. I don't know.
All right,
I will say, I think there are times though when, we have such great artists like Liz and Ted and Ed who perform in this wonderful space, that getting more of an appreciation for them, maybe with, a screen here that's showing how, they're playing, could give us more of an appreciation for the great artists we have here. So, and that goes for the pulpit as well. So.
I'll just say I don't have super strong opinions on the technology piece of it. I think, like many of these other people have said, I would really need to see like how it's being done so that it's a way that's not taking away from what you come to church for.
Thank you. This is wonderful, you guys. The nuance of this is great.
I wanted to add one more thing for us to think about, which is other forms of technology that I'm not comfortable with, but there's just so much that could make this more sort of back and forth. There are technologies that can be in the pews for the congregation to respond or engage. That's not my style, but I think it's something to consider.
Okay. All right, one more, and not everyone has to answer this, but as you think about the process, right, and you think about in 2 or 3 months where we really start to zero in on the specifics, and there will be different people will be on sides and differences, and the conversations will get harder as we get more detailed. I want to invite you, if that's kind of the person you are, or you feel natural about this, offer a blessing in the form of what you hope our congregation, how they handle the process, what you hope for the congregation as we go through this process. Not a particular thing, like I hope I get the screens up, but we're talking more emotional and relational. What you hope either that the congregation remembers as they do the process, or what you'd like to bless them with of what they remember, or what the experience ends up being like. It's a hard question, so don't feel you have to answer, but if you have a blessing, I'd invite you to lift it up. Oh, Jim just put her on the spot. Wow.
I didn't even think I was going to be in a fishbowl. I thought I was going back to the kitchen. But the first thing that popped into my head, I cannot remember the whole part of the poem, but there's a poem by Rilke, and one of the lines is, "No feeling is final." That's something that's been sticking with me through the pandemic, and I think it will stick with me through this process, that feelings will come and feelings will go. Hopefully we'll have openness to all things, and none of it will be final until we make a decision. And even that will be changed later by future generations.
Thank you.
A thing I think about is I think no matter what, some people will end up disappointed by what is decided. And I hope that they feel that we acknowledge that, and that we are, hold that in our hearts, and, understand that this is difficult. I always say, when people have differences of opinion about things in the church, it's because we all love it, and we all want it to succeed, and we want it to grow, and so that's why we have different ways of getting there, but it always comes out of the love and the way that we cherish this place. So I just don't want anybody that is disappointed to think that somebody won and they lost. It's we all had to get here together.
Well, that's so great.
Oftentimes when I'm sitting here in the beautiful sunlight's coming in, and I'm having a moment of spirituality that I don't get to have anywhere else, and time to myself, I feel a sense of gratitude when I even look at these plaques for the people that put this here and the people that came before me. And so, I want to carry that gratitude forward and hope that, I guess my hope would be that those in the future, whether it be my children or Alexa's children, or those who I haven't met yet, can feel that same sense of spirituality, gratitude, and that we make the right choice by them.
Thank you.
I think Unitarian Universalism is now. Now is our moment, and I think we all realize it. I just think that we have to have the courage of open communication that's been brought from the committee so far and by the church at large, and also make these steps, intentionally and slowly, and keep the dialogue open with one another, as Liz said, and your sign that's in our case that we're open, right?
Thank you, Graham.
I don't know if this is so much a blessing as it is just a hope for the process. But my hope is that as the conversations continue, we don't forget about the really little kids who we don't see every day.
Thank you.
I hope this process builds on the community and allows people to come together and practice that listening in a new way and learn and grow together.
Well, I want you all to stay there for just a second, and just huge thanks. That was a blessing. I appreciate that. So now we'll take a deep breath, and then we're going to divide up into our little groups. And I just want to explain the process so that we're able to use our time as efficiently as possible. So there's going to be a very specific process. So these are meant for these small groups to be a conversation among folks, a chance for you to talk. But since we all know there's always two extroverts in the circle that end up dominating the conversations and introverts don't, we're going to use a particular process, right? So when you get in your circles with what we'll call your facilitators, what we're going to do is go back to that question I asked all of you to think about. What popped? So I'm sure you have like 20 comments, or you're thinking of 20 things based on listening to this, but work really hard, almost as spiritual discernment, to think about what is the one thing that's rising to the top. One thing that, and when I say pop, right, it's okay for it to be like a worry, right? It can be something, again, that opened your perspective that you heard, that you're just super grateful that just changed. You're not even sure how that's going to change you, but you feel like it's just something new that I need to keep in my consciousness. It can be a big amen, like I was so glad to hear that and relieved. It can also be the reason that's popping for me is it's making me a little nervous and making my blood pressure go up. But we're going to do that with everyone having a chance to speak in your circle. So everyone takes a chance to share without interruption, number one. So what your promises are is no interruption when someone's talking, let them finish. And then when you go next, you don't have to go in a line, but when you go next, work really hard to share what's inside of you, not use your turn as a sneaky way to debate with what the person right before you said. Does that make sense? So you're really reporting on the conversation that's going on inside of you, having listened to the fishbowl, not trying to debate with the conversation that goes around. And that's what we're going to call the listening round. And then after everyone has a chance to share and you've listened, the facilitators are going to open up for one last round, which we'll call the response round, where you will get to then actually respond to what you've heard, right? Not so much debate it, but just offer up sort of gratitudes of why you are grateful. Again, one thing, not thanking everybody in your group for what they shared, but list one thing for you of what everyone shared that you felt was important for you to hear, that you want to hold on to. Does that make sense? Anybody confused? Raise your hand if you're confused about process. Okay. I think, can folks, we had wanted to do 30 minutes for this, but with a lot of, can folks, okay, are they okay with like 20 minutes? Are we doing all right? Does that feel right, Catherine? Yeah, let's try that. Again, it might be so, but that just means monitor yourself a little bit, because that means you've got like 2 minutes to share your what's popping for you, okay? So I think you can stand up if you're the facilitator of the group so people can cluster around the facilitators. And the more the better. So again, if we could have a lot of facilitators, it's smaller. So I think I'm going to also be a facilitator over here. So it's going to be hard, right? But if we're going to able to do it in 20 minutes, you want to try to make not having, you don't want 10 in a group. I know that's going to be hard. Jim, are you over here? Just I want to make sure people are standing so they know. Do we have a facilitator over here, right? Okay, one. There's a little bit of a log jam here. You're going to be okay.
Hey, Scott, the only thing I would say is if any of the recorders need a pencil or a paper, raise your hand, I'll get it to you. Otherwise, if everybody's okay, we can get ourselves going. Do you need something?
Oh, and the video, folks who are online, there's a few folks handling the Zoom room to pull you together into a group online. Yeah, just stay in the main room, and someone will grab you in that main room. Okay, so everyone online can stay in that same group. There'll be one group, and Carol, you're doing that? Okay, I'll let you explain. That's great.
Oh, okay, let's see. Hey, hi everybody, can you hear me?
We can. I can.
Hey. Yeah, Sherry, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Well, I had to.
I seem to still be muted.
You have to do it. We have to do it ourselves.
I did it.
I don't know exactly.
We thought Dustin would unmute everybody, but no.
Oh, no, but the what
Sarah,
I asked Dustin to do is mute the microphones in the sanctuary so that we can talk. Because the way it worked, while they're talking, we can't talk. So if he's done what I asked him to do, yeah, he has. Dustin is muted now. Well, hello, everybody.
Sarah.
Hi.
Hi.
What about Sarah? She was there.
It's Sarah. She's muted. You.
Sarah, which Sarah?
Hi, Sarah. Yes. I miss you. Oh, no, the other Sarah.
Sarah Moran.
Well, we miss you both.
We miss you both and your son. We miss your little son.
Thank you. Yeah. It would help. There's Sarah Moran. And I see Nancy Powell. I don't know who that is.
It was a man.
Right.
That's Jonathan Powell, who Catherine talked about at the worship service. The worship on Thursday.
Okay. Yeah, that's Dustin. And then Kim and
there he is.
And Sherry, are you both there? Anybody that wants to, some of you are still muted. If you want to participate, you don't have to, but you'll need to unmute yourself to be able to do this. Boy, we're really short on time. I'd love to just talk a little bit, but I don't think we have much time, so we'll dive right in. And if you feel the need to get up and move around, I understand that completely because this has been a long haul. The point of this is try not to overdo the instructions because I think we've got the instructions. Yeah, Scott's already said a lot about it, but this is a really important part of the process is for those of us who witness these fishbowls just to think a little bit about them and react. Very important that this is not something you're not responding to what somebody else says. You're working from what you are thinking about that you're taking away from the things that you've heard. And it's really important that we try not to judge what anybody else says or respond to what somebody within our group says. We're just working within, we're just offering what we have thought about. So the first question, and I'm going to go, I've learned that this helps. I'm going to go in order of my screen so that I don't lose where I am. So Mary Ann is going to be first, and Mary, Michael, Nancy Obaska, and then Sarah, I'm seeing there. And that's all I can see at the moment, but that's, well, you're coming, you're just in the next, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screens open. When I go to the next set of screens, you're in the next set of screens. So
a gallery view, see everybody.
I can, but it's nice to, when you're talking, it's nice to see you on speaker too.
Okay.
You really need to know where you're going to be?
No, that's fine. That's
Oh, okay, because I can do that. Okay, so the first question is, what popped out to you of all the things that you heard?
And I'm first?
Yep.
What popped out to me was the young people all said the community and the people. In one way or another, they said that was the most important thing, which I thought was interesting because it was not the building. In terms of the leaders, the thing that they said that struck me was essentially, we hope we remain who we are. And I'm sorry, my eyes watering, I'm not crying. Those are the things that popped. There are things that for me ring very, very true. And that was that the leaders said essentially what I feel.
Okay. Sherry and Michael, in any order?
I have to really echo Mary Ann. I was just so struck by the young people and the power and thought that went behind everything they said. But she's right, they did mention welcoming, but I think in context, as we're just trying to think about the space, I think without fail, they all felt that the plaques sort of were not welcoming. And that's what I took.
Yeah.
But and the leaders, I was very impressed too, as try to grapple with just more things with IT and to integrate that and not to be afraid of that. But I really responded to also Carolyn DiFastano talking about this is a sacred space, and in worship, I hope it's not just an old person reacting to IT, but worship is sacred to me. And I would not like to have all angles of my face being recorded or looked at while I sat in the sanctuary, because it's the hour of the week that is sacred to me.
Yeah, I was struck that when there was conversation that from people who found, I guess, the experience unwelcoming. And to me, the building is a pretty small part of what the welcoming environment is. Of everything, maybe the plaques are the problem with welcoming people as far as the building's concerned. But to me, it's all about the attitude of the congregants and how they try to make newcomers feel welcome or recognized. And that's, to me, the key to welcoming. And I think that there are parts, the plaques may turn people off, but and so that's an issue. But to me, you want to be a welcoming congregation, you have to ingrain it within the congregants and the various committees to make sure that a new face gets talked to and recognized. And
Yeah, that doesn't work.
important to the welcoming side. I'm done. Okay, Doug and Lois, you're gonna laugh, but you've just popped into next.
Oh,
space on my screen.
Okay. Okay, I'll start. Well, sorry, but I've just, Catherine brought up that the building is called a meeting house because it was like a meeting house for the community. And while that's true, there's actually another reason that goes way back in UU, and that's that because most of us don't believe in capital G God, we don't believe that God is in the building, and that sets us apart from a lot of faith traditions which really do believe that God is in the building. But having said that, I've always said that the building, while it's only just a building, like I have a spiritual feeling whenever I walk into the building, and it's not the building and it's not God, but it's just everything that happens in the church, and the building represents that to me. So, and of course, I am a building kind of a guy, but I just think that the what happens in the building is everything. What we hear and what we see and what we think about. Without that, there is nothing else. And so that's very important to me, that we see and feel and think and hear things that touch our souls.
Wow, I'm not following that. I like that Justin said the acoustics are really great, but the visuals are not so much. I'd never thought about that. A lot of things I'd never thought about. I agree with Sherry about what Carolyn said about cameras on us during the service. That would be frightening, because I cry and I do weird things. I get really moved and I cry, so I don't want to be filmed during that. I loved hearing that the youth has friends among us older generations. I loved hearing that they actually like us. I'd never heard about destroying the pulpit. That was a little bit, teeny bit shocking to hear. I'm wondering if no one's ever brought up the organ at all. I don't know if that's part of the building or not, but it's never been mentioned. I'm just wondering if that's part of the concept. I loved hearing that he was good at some point talk about the colors of the church. I think that's an interesting topic. And I think Liz said a really important thing. There's a lot of things that are not church that happen there. There are weddings, funerals, strangers using our church, and they don't have the comfort of us being there and Catherine being there. So they're sitting there and all they're seeing is those plaques and stuff. They don't have the cushioning. So that's an interesting thing to think about.
Okay, and let's see. The orders, I'm just gonna go with whoever's next on my screen and then tell you who's at bat. How's that? So Nancy Ovasca is up and Sarah is at bat, and not Sarah Moran. Sarah, I don't know what your last name is.
Babcock.
Babcock.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Nancy.
Hi. I felt wonderful how the youth feel about our congregation. And for them, the familiarity is with us and the people because they weren't in church a lot. So it didn't surprise me. And I felt wonderful that they felt that way, but it didn't surprise me that was their main reaction was to the people, because that's what they, for the most part, have interacted with. I truly appreciate it, and I never thought of it until Carolyn said it, about being on camera and being on spot. And, that would feel like a revival meeting on television. And I thought that was a very good point to bring up. And someone in the leadership said that people need to feel acknowledged even if they didn't get what they want, essentially. And so that, I think that to me was very important, that we all hold that in our hearts, that we acknowledge how people feel about things, because we tend to win or lose. So that's it.
Thank you. Sarah Babcock. And at bat is, it says Nancy Powell, but I'm sorry, I don't know who is Nancy Powell. Oh, and you're muted too, so I can't hear you. Okay, well, Sarah, why don't you go ahead and then we'll solve this technology issue in a minute.
I was very touched by both the youth and the adults that spoke, and I agreed with a lot of what they said, and they're so articulate, especially the youth.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I'll summarize it by the question that I think it was Doug or Lois put in the chat, actually, which reminded me of my first time in the church. I've only been coming for a few years, and I very much wanted a like you church. And my first impression, I almost didn't come back. I do not have a good relationship. I was raised as a Catholic, and it was a long time before I was ready to come to a church.
Yes. Oh, she frozen.
I think you are freezing.
Sarah, come back.
Okay, unfortunately. Okay, Sarah, you back?
I'm back. Oh no. That's why I was going around the house. I was trying to find, Comcast is coming in a half hour to fix my Wi-Fi.
Okay.
I'll talk fast. So I don't know where you lost me, but the panels in the church for me have never resonated. And I almost didn't come back, because when I was looking for a community, my first impression was like, oh, this is a beautiful space. I love the light. I love the acoustics. But the panels for me were a huge turnoff. And the first time that Eli, who is 7, well, he's 7 now, he was 5 or 4 when we started there. The first time he was in the church, he's whispering to me, Mommy, what do those words mean? What do they say? And I was editing, and I was thinking, I don't want to have to edit. That's not where I want it to be. Now, obviously I've kept coming because, like everybody has said, the people are what matter. And I like the community and the people. But for me, they're really not in alignment.
Okay. Oh. Thank you, Sarah. Now, my mystery person has disappeared. So Sarah Moran, you are next.
But you can't see me because I can't get a picture.
Well,
yeah, you can.
We can see you.
We see you.
Really?
Yeah.
If I can't see you. Well, all right. No, I was thrilled with the service this morning, and the tablets are a huge turnoff. I have brought many people to church, guests, and you know, what do I say? It's a big turnoff. Many people I bring are atheists, agnostics, and the church itself is so beautiful. I taught in that room, the South Shore Conservatory, used the church for many, I've given opera performances there. Everybody loves the church. I love the building. I love the light. I love the people. And those tablets have to go. It's such a big turnoff. I don't know who would appreciate it in this day and age. And I don't know about the rest of the design of the church. I love it. And I love the people. It's been a totally glorious, accepting experience I've needed taken care of. I have Sunday service because a dear parishioner comes over and sets me up every Sunday. I don't know why I can't see you. I'm glad you can see me. Anyway, I love the church. I love the people. Open the doors and see all the people, you know, that kind of thing. But it's a glorious, glorious space. And it's a glorious experience, except for the tablets. They are really a huge turnoff, and they look at you every bit of the way. Every day you see them. I hope I'm not being too critical, but I'm being realistic as far as I'm concerned. and I try to bring people into the church because it's such a loving, accepting community. And I guess I bring mostly agnostics.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I've just been told that we have 2 minutes.
Oh,
And,
bye-bye. Bye.
Remember that we're,
yes, bye-bye.
Has to turn us off. So,
okay. Thank you.
That is everybody that I have on screen. I've got Cindy Wilson and maybe Mike. Are you guys there? Want to say anything, or Kim and Sherry?
All muted.
All muted. Okay. What I've been taking copious notes as you've talked, so I can let everybody know, the essence of what you've wanted to mention. And I think it's really more important than anything else that we hear each other and talk, actually talk about what's coming and what we want to do, and think about who we are as a community. And it's really exciting to be at this point. The committee's been working long and hard on getting us to this point. The question that I would like to leave with you, and please feel free to get back to me with a response to this, is there anything that that somebody else said that made you think of something else that you wish that you had said?
Things, and many important things were shared, but they've already recorded it. But for the checkout, pick one thing that you think from your conversation other people should hear. What would be helpful? So not necessarily the thing you think was most important in this circle personally, but what you think would be helpful for the other groups to hear as we do sort of a checkout of the small groups. One thing, as hard as that is.
Not hard. Get rid of the tablets. That was hard.
Oh, it's me.
I think in my comment saying that I agreed with the leaders essentially says exactly the same thing. Went farther than that. Said platforms at the side are all right, but leave the pulpit as it is.
I'm a little confused about what's going on right now, so you just keep talking, I'll keep writing.
I only heard one person say leave it exactly the same.
Well, I'm just talking about the center part. I'm not talking about anything besides or out. I think history is there, needs to be maintained.
But they did talk about other ways that we could use it.
And I agreed with that.
Okay.
I don't want anybody tearing it down. I think it would be a horrendous mistake.
Okay.
Get rid of the tablet, I agree.
Remember, we're staying in our silos.
We need you in the sanctuary now to report out, Carol.
Okay.
Thanks.
What do I say? Okay, I'll talk to you soon. I'm out.
Out of front, if you have, but another minute if you haven't yet. Pick the one thing you think will be important that you want to report out to all the other circles.
Sorry, Marianne.
Okay.
You were. I don't know how this all works.
So as long as we're all still here and maybe we're not interfering with everybody else, I'll just give my 1 minute speech about the tablets. And that is, I think on the part where it says that if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to go to eternal damnation, the resurrection of condemnation. At the end.
Oh, God.
I think that is religious hate speech, and just not something that we can allow to be propagated in our.
I know it.
What you're saying is, if you don't believe in this guy's divinity, you're going to go to hell. That's just wrong, and we can't live with it. On the other hand, from my point of view, it's a New England church. It ought to stay a New England church. It ought to look like a New England church. I got nothing that I'm concerned about anything else about the appearance of the church besides the tablets. Done.
And I agree 100%, excepting I'm willing to go with those who want some change to meet their needs. You know, I don't want those tablets under any circumstance. But I do think history is important. We have to keep a lot of what we have, improving with what we can accept. I thought the young leaders said exactly that. I thought they said everything I wanted to say.
Okay, one.
You always go first. I was gonna say, when we were doing Zoom for a year and a half down in the children's chapel, I loved those quilts on both sides of Catherine. They're so loving and welcoming and handmade. They don't say
All
that.
right, we are 7 to 8 minutes from being able to go out and enjoy the day. Again, just to remind folks, you know, it was probably impossible or very hard to pick one thing, so I'll just remind folks that the committee's committed to digesting all the stuff that happened in the small groups, and we'll find a way to share that with others. Probably multiple ways, both through written, but also have a chance to have like a table. And Jim, I hope I'm not talking out of turn, but the committee, one of the ideas that we had talked about, not decided in full, is that there might be a table where you'll be able to actually talk to the committee. So in terms of finding the notes, what was said in the small groups, there'll probably be a written explanation of what was said, like the highlights. But if you want to talk to the committee on Sundays, you can actually have a real human conversation about teasing out some of the things that were sort of unearthed in our conversations. But today, just because of time, the one thing that rises to the top, not necessarily even the personal, you know, what was the strong, you know, whatever for you felt was most important from your group's discussion that your group felt would be important and helpful for everyone else to hear. And we don't have to go in a line. Again, quick or solid, just whenever you feel moved or ready to share. The mic to you.
I'll give you a short version of all the things as you asked.
Well, not all at once.
One, yeah, well, but a few words. So more welcoming, appropriate UU messaging, and I think we all agree that the tablet should go.
Thank you. We're just, yeah. So Caroline had said more. The big takeaway was more clear UU priority messaging. And then she cheated and she snuck in a second thing about the tablet should be moved.
Yeah, the takeaway, big takeaway again was that the plaques should be moved and we could tweak the altar to better reflect our values and welcome new families and people.
Again, don't feel like you have to say 2 cents. If you can tease out, folks, it's okay. Go ahead.
So our group spoke about, we are part of a very long lineage, and we are also called to evolve right now, and that we need to consider the past, honor the present, and look towards the future. So all of the changes really need to be made with the future in mind, with growing this community, and with being a welcoming community that everyone feels comfortable coming to.
Okay, our committee, we finally teased out the tablets should move out of the sanctuary, but they want them to be placed in the building someplace else. And they would be replaced by our 7 principals. And they also just really feel like those 2 frames up there that the tablets are in are important design elements. So that's where our 7 principles could go. And they were pretty clear about that.
That's great. I should just highlight that this is not my consultancy area, but I think we all know that we have 7 principles and there's a discussion of an 8th. So whatever designer you pick, I'm going to be very interested to see how they keep that bottom rung, that you can keep pulling it down to add more.
My group said that we were open to discrete technology, but we wanted to keep the spiritual feeling that we are worshiping in a space that many, many people have come before, and to keep that feeling for everybody, including the kids who've come back to visit after they've left.
We want our space to reflect our values. We want change to be thoughtful.
And this was the online?
Yes, we were online. I left my mask in the office. I'm triple vaxxed, if that helps. The best phrase I got out of this was, what happens in the building is everything. And so much falls out from that. What happens in the building is everything.
So our group is concise here. With any changes, preserve the architectural design and simplicity of the meeting house.
All right, since you guys are center stage, deep breath. Any other important insight that you got personally? You don't have to, that you personally think you want to share with the community. Go ahead, Carol.
I think the community, the strength of the community here was talked about in so many different ways, and I would particularly like to lift up the fact that our young people seem to feel a part of our community and actually seem to appreciate being part of who we are and what we have to offer.
And you don't have to, but I'm just making space if you do have something you want to share with the whole church.
Well, I do think that respect for our history and our historical past is an important theme that came up. But personally, again, this is not so much for the group. One thing that struck me was the impact that the plaques have, to some extent, on the youth, to someone with a Jewish heritage. And in the discussions we had before, also LGBTQ folks found those, the message coming from there is not friendly to LGBTQ folks.
Oh, Jim, thank you.
I actually would like to thank everybody for staying this long and to value our work. And thanks, Scott, of course, for your leadership. And I really hope that we continue this, this important work and that we can make a few changes that will help have the people rolling into the front door.
I'm going to quote Alexa and say, remember the little kids. For me, that was a powerful moment. She made me cry. And I'm not going to forget that.
My group spoke quite a bit about technology, and I found myself watching the screen rather than the live presentation. I was not surprised that I did that. I'm a digital artist, so screens attract me. However, I had some good comments about the screen changes your reflection of what you've seen or experienced here in church. So when you go home, there's something about interacting with the live minister and the choir and all. Yay, Catherine. People really love Zoom, but they don't want it to be the only way to go to church.
Well, thank you. And I just want to add one quick thing. What is the young man who was here that talked about, when talk about 50 years out, what'll happen, that we'll have droves of Unitarian Universalists? Is he still here? No. Well, I would just, again, prerogative of my own piece. I was so heartened by that, and it sort of woke me up a little bit, and embarrassed me that I hadn't even been thinking about this. But I wrote his piece down because that's going to be one of the things I want to talk about the committee, because there's so many times, even consciously or unconsciously, when I'm working with a congregation, we make decisions out of fear. And I think his comment just had such optimism and hope and kind of shifted the tone to like, well, let's make this decision out of what we want, we hope, we're aspiring towards. That may sound like a small thing, but there's something in that I feel like I wanna hold on to. Besides, just thank you for giving this your time and looking forward to the conversation continuing, friends. Have a great day.